So I want to welcome all of you and thank you for making the time to participate in this learning session. This is the discussion today is about the future 880 rapid. And it's a route that's coming from East County, El Cajon, Santee, and SR52, West UCSD area. Here at SANDAG, we're really committed providing reliable, safe, and accessible opportunities for transportation and mobility within our region. We're really committed on choices for all. We understand that the cost of living is rising and every time more choices are needed and affordable choices. Additionally, the East County keeps striving and growing and showing how it's becoming day by day more vibrant community. So it is our responsibility to provide here at SANDAG those mobility choices in all the regions. So we really look forward on your participation and appreciate that you're here. And we really want to hear your input about transportation solutions within our communities. And I'm going to pass it on to Antoinette, our Director of Planning, to provide you more information. And thank you for participating again. Have a very nice evening.
Thank you, Mario, and thanks to all of you for joining us at the dinner hour. We are really are encouraged by the number of folks who have showed up to provide input on, I think, what's a very excited transit connection for the region. This is going to be one of the first east-west transit connections connecting El Cajon, Santee, the region's largest job centers, a major university. And this project really came out of outreach that we've been doing recently for both the comprehensive multimodal corridor plan, that is a planning study for SR52 and the communities along the SR52, and outreach that we were doing for the 2025 regional plan, which is the region's long-range plan for transportation. And through that outreach, we heard a lot from communities in East County that there needed to be better connections to the west. So not only was this project added to the 2025 plan, it was not in the 2021 plan, but the SANDAG board also allocated funding to start the planning for this rapid route, recognizing how important it is. So I want to be clear, though, we only have funding currently to do the planning. We are actively seeking grants for the next stages of work in partnership with MTS and Caltrans. So the purpose of the meeting tonight is for the team to really go over the route, the project timeline, and get your feedback on popular destinations that we want to connect with this route. This is not the first opportunity to participate. This is really just the start of a conversation. We'll have many conversations and do a lot of public outreach to get input on this project. We also know that not everybody can attend public meetings, so we'll be launching a survey as well, where we'll get information, and we would appreciate all of your help getting the word out about that survey so we can get good input from your community. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Allie to kick things off. Thank you again, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A after the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Antoinette. And speaking of Q&A, if you have a question while we're presenting, don't feel like you have to wait till the end of the meeting. You can just drop that question into the Q&A or chat box, which you can find by clicking on either the conversation bubble symbols that you can see at the bottom of your screen. And we'll try to answer urgent questions people have as we see them, but all other questions, we'll answer those during the chunk of time that we have set aside at the end. And if we don't get to all of them, we will write up those answers for you after the call and send a follow-up email with those soon. So real quick, for anyone who hasn't connected with us before, we wanted to explain what SANDAG is. So we are the regional transit planning agency that works for you. So you pay taxes, then the federal, state, and local government send some of that funding back to the region through us to plan our transportation system, working with all of our local government partners to plan things like improving the roads, highways, bike lanes, or improvements to old ones, anything that helps you move around the region. So that could be a small thing like this bus route, or bigger projects like that new border crossing that's being planned in East Otay Mesa. We also build transportation projects of all sizes. That could be Quicker things like when we added bike lanes to El Cajon Boulevard, to major construction like when we added 11 new miles to the Blue Line trolley that now connects to UC San Diego. And while we do all that, we also work on preserving natural resources in the region, making sure our work supports a safe, healthy environment, and we provide resources directly to the community, like our free transit program for youth, and also funding to our local cities to do things like fix potholes and a whole lot more. So now I'm just going to turn it over to Mimi, who can tell you more about our rapid bus projects in general that are happening in the region.
Great, thanks, Allie. And I am the project manager for this project, so you'll be seeing me and hearing from me over the next couple of years specifically. So thanks again for coming. For rapid projects specifically, in the planning branch of what SANDAG does, we prepare a regional plan and update it every 4 years. And the regional plan includes projects, programs, and policies. And we're currently working on the 2025 regional plan now, which includes 35 new rapid routes by 2035, 35 by 35. We're starting work on 6 of these routes this year, one of which will service the East County, Kearney Mesa, and UCSD communities, and I'll talk about that later on in this presentation. But more about what makes rapid different from local service. There's a few key differences. The first one being that it's faster service with fewer stops, and we'd be using technology and infrastructure to bypass traffic. Rapids also come by more often during daytime hours, and they have modern stops with digital displays that show the next bus times. And in the next slide, you'll see some examples of that infrastructure and strategies that can make these buses go faster. Again, these are examples. Every route will be unique, and we have several tools in our toolbox to make the service rapid. Again, infrastructure and technology are the tools that we can use. And we'll be working with you, the community members, MTS, City of El Cajon, City of Santee, City of San Diego, and Caltrans to identify the right mix of solutions to make these buses move fast in this corridor. We have another team at SANDAG that will be looking at the technology for all of the rapids, the 6 new rapid routes that we're rolling out specifically. All these 6 routes are spread across the region. So we're going to be looking at the technology as a whole because we understand that each jurisdiction has different infrastructure, different policies. So we'll be working with that technology team and the jurisdictions to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of the policies and what's needed to get these buses moving. Here are some examples that we could use, so we could stay on that slide, and I'll go through the few examples that are on the slide there. The first one being express lanes on highways. So SR52 is the main highway that we have that this bus route would use. So that would be similar to the express lanes on I-15. Green light priority, so that's more of a technology component that would allow the bus to enter the intersection before other vehicles. And another strategy would be having all door boarding on the buses to allow for people to enter and exit the bus at any doorway instead of only entering through the front. So again, these are all just examples. There's plenty more that we have in our toolbox, but we'll be looking at these types of tools with you and with our technology team, with the jurisdictions over these next couple of years to get the right mix for this route. With that, I'll turn it back to Allie.
Yeah, so we know that the route that you all are interested in is Rapid Route 880. So you can see on the map just a quick preview of the area that we're studying. And we thought we'd start with a quick poll so we could get a sense of who's here and your connection to the route. So if we could just launch that first poll question, which of these places in the study area do you go to often? You can check as many as applies. We'll just give it about a minute for people to put that in. Some people still telling us some places they're visiting. Seeing a lot of people that frequent UC San Diego on the call. Great, so we got a pretty equal distribution, but like lots of people going to UC San Diego, people going to UTC, Kearney Mesa, Santee, and El Cajon. Great. And then if we could share the second polling question, we are interested to know, how do you get to the places in the study area now? Seeing some people's responses coming in. Great. Yeah, and as we mentioned before, makes sense that a lot of people are driving right now. Some people are ride sharing, some public transit riders, some people biking and walking around these areas as well. Great to hear. Just sharing that result so people can see. Charles, I see your hand, and we will definitely get to your question at the end of the presentation. So thank you so much for that. We see that. Okay, great. And so Mimi is going to share now just a little bit of background about this Rapid 880 project.
Thanks. So again, what Antoinette had mentioned at the beginning of this presentation is summarized here as well. This is what we understand people in this community has asked for, an easier way to go east and west within central San Diego on transit with more evening service, better traffic flow on Highway 52, more affordable, reliable, and safe ways to get around, and more access to jobs, healthcare, and education. So that's what we've heard. And then we also look at the data, which is shown here. So these maps show where the people are going, based on data. The pink lines show residents from Santee and El Cajon making frequent trips west to areas with lots of jobs, schools, and medical facilities. And we can see that movement in the morning. People are going to Kearney Mesa, UTC, UC San Diego, and then seeing that reverse in the afternoons, people going back home. So we've heard that from the community. We see that in the data, and that is why we are studying this Rapid 880 route more closely. And I'll also say that we are calling this Rapid 880 now, but the number is subject to change over time. We will be working with MTS on the actual name, but the concept and route will still keep living on. So we'll call it 880 now and for the next couple of years, but and we'll certainly message if that number changes. But as a whole, we're looking at this lighter area on the map is our study area, and the darker area we're leaving out. So the route would start in El Cajon, travel north through Santee, then west along the 52, have some stops in Kearny Mesa, and ultimately end in the UCSD or UTC areas. And now in terms of the timeline, when would this become a reality? This is a simplified overview of what needs to be done to get the route running on the road. Right now, we're doing some early planning. After that, we will analyze more specific details and get more feedback from you and the operators to figure out exactly where this route will go, what the stops will be, and how we can accomplish that. And then once we have a final plan that we know will work best, we have to apply for and be successful in getting funding a couple different times. And then we could move on to doing the final design and construction for this project. So again, over the next 2 years, we'll be reaching out to keep getting input from you about this project. And we're also going to be looking about how we can phase in this route over time. So we may be able to start with a limited route and build up to the full route so we can get this running sooner. So as soon as 2029, with the caveat that it's still dependent on funding. We do know that we need to allocate about a couple of years to get buses, because it just takes that long to get new buses as well. So that is definitely something we are going to be looking at as part of this project process. So today we want to hear from you, and we're kicking off a survey that'll be open until April 8th. And Allie will walk through a few things that we'd like your input on.
Yeah, thanks, Mimi. And we just wanted to check in to know more about people who joined us today. Can we launch poll question 3? We want to know, how often do people on the call use public transit? Cool, I'm seeing most people answered that. Can share the results. Cool, so it looks like good variety. Some of us using it a few times a year, a couple times a month, or maybe a few times a week. So thank you for that. So this is the meat of what we wanted to talk about today. So we really want your input about places in the study area that get visited by a lot of people on a regular basis, because knowing these popular destinations is going to help guide where the bus route could go. And if we find clusters of these popular places, that's going to help suggest where we can put the stops on this route. So that's not to say that every little point on the map that you see here would have a stop at every single one of these places. We're just looking for clusters of popular destinations to try and triangulate and narrow down where the stops could go. But obviously, like all of that, there's going to be some possibilities that we present to you later with those routes and possible stops, and the community is going to have some input on that at every step of the way. And we did already research a bunch of these locations, as you can see on the map, but we need your help to tell us what's missing. So if we could just launch the next polling question, can you tell us, are there any popular destinations missing in El Cajon and Santee that are in the study area you can see on the map? Sort of in that westernmost area of town in Santee and El Cajon. And you can go ahead and add a couple of destinations, separating them with commas if you have multiple that you want to say, or if you sent in your response too quick and you want to drop another one in the chat, you can go ahead and do that too. And I'm just going to give people about 30 more seconds to think. People might be frantically using Google Maps, trying to find the names of locations to send in. But don't worry if you don't get your submission in, the survey will be open and you can submit the same information later. Okay, nice. I'm not seeing any more trickle in. Just gonna take a look at what people said. Zoom makes me open another window. Good, some folks mentioning the Superior Court, the town center at Santee. Yeah, it's definitely on the map. People in agreement with that. The transit centers, definitely. The Santee YMCA, the Santana High School area. People are wondering about connections to the airport. If we can put a pin in that question till the end. Oh, I think, but I'm not sure if they're talking about the Gillespie Airport or just the regular San Diego International Airport. Mission Trails, the library, El Cajon Civic Center, and some support for the transit centers as well. Great, lots of great answers. So thank you so much, and we'll be adding that to the map so other people that are taking the survey later can see your submissions and upvote them if they agree with you. Great, so same question, if we could launch our next polling question. Tell us what destinations are missing in Kearney Mesa. We already identified, obviously, lots of people trying to get to those restaurants in Convoy, the Employment Development Disability Office, Gateway Kearney Mesa, the Transit Center, obviously the Kaiser Hospital, National University, but what else? What's missing? And as we're submitting, really thinking about places where lots of people are going, where there's lots of jobs for people, trying to get to medical appointments, big schools, shopping centers. I'm gonna give people just about 30 more seconds. Great, okay. Take a look at what people said. Lots of support for Kaiser, support for the convoy restaurants, support for connecting people to the transit center so they could get to other transit routes. Kearney Mesa High. Everybody's trying to get to the food and convoy. I know I'm trying to get there too. More support for Kaiser, the Magnolia concert venue. So people trying to get to karaoke. Okay, very good. Can include that in our convoy restaurants area. Great. Okay. And lastly, we just want your feedback about popular destinations that people are going in the UTC and UC San Diego area. So we've identified obviously UC San Diego, the VA hospital, UC San Diego Health, the Westfield UTC, ton of jobs over there, right? People trying to get to work in the Nobel Research Park area, the library, University City High. Is anything missing? Please let us know. Great, seeing some people still sending in their responses. Gonna give people about 30 more seconds. But as always, you can send us more later through the survey. Okay. Let's see what people were saying. People supporting getting to the medical center, some people calling out Torrey Pines area, some people trying to get to some areas over in La Jolla Shores, people trying to get to the beach, the mall, the aquarium, calling out a need for multiple stops in UCSD, such as the central campus versus like places where people are trying to get to work, the big biotech job area. Some people expressing support for the stops or the destinations we're already considering. Great, lots of great responses, everybody. Thank you so much for your feedback. And if you didn't hear it out loud, we couldn't read quite all of them. But yeah. So thank you so much for sharing your feedback. We've seen a number of questions come through in the chat and the Q&A that we're going to be answering now. So please, if you have any other questions, you can drop it in the Q&A and drop it in the chat. And you also can raise your virtual hand if you want to talk to us. I have here with us some of our planning staff at SANDAG and also with some of our partner agencies, partner jurisdictions that sent some of their staff members if there's any questions that are not a SANDAG thing, but maybe it's a Caltrans thing, or maybe it's a City of Santee or City of El Cajon thing, and they can answer your questions as well. So let's see what we have. I'll start with some of the ones that I saw in the chat. Somebody asked if we're a California or San Diego organization. We are a San Diego region organization. And someone asked how we are different from MTS.
So I can take that one. Allie. So MTS is the operator of transit. SANDAG is responsibility for planning, designing, building, and funding transportation. So once this project is operational, MTS would be in charge of the day-to-day operations, any future changes to the project. But we are responsible for doing the planning for that project. And when Allie said we are a San Diego region organization, that means 18 cities and county of San Diego when we talk about the San Diego region. So SANDAG is what's called a metropolitan planning organization, regional transportation planning agency, council of governments. We have a lot of designations.
Yeah, and so MTS, they're the people, they'd hire the drivers, they get the buses, they make sure like the buses get cleaned, all that stuff that they need to operate the route.
And we work very closely with MTS on the planning of the route. They're here tonight.
Great. I saw another question that I think we answered, which was when roughly do we see this beginning and going live? And I think Mimi answered that. It depends on funding, right? But some version of the route with limited stops could be as soon as 2029, as we said. Obviously, with more bells and whistles on the route later on, but the goal is to get it out there as quickly as we can, funding permitted. Somebody also asked if we could share the presentation slides in English after the meeting. After the meeting, everybody who attended, you guys are going to get a follow-up email that has a link to the survey and also links to view this meeting recording on YouTube. So that'll have access to all the slides and all the cool and all the things that we shared today. So just looking at some of the questions, someone asked, would this route have only a few stops so it would be a relatively direct route to UCSD?
Yeah, so, the point of rapid bus projects is that you don't have as many stops as a local bus project so that you can keep it faster. And it usually is connecting kind of longer distances. So this is a little bit different than a local bus route in that we won't be stopping as frequently because we do want to be somewhat competitive with the automobile travel times and get folks, from the east to the west as quickly as possible. But there are other local buses in the area. That's not changing. This is just a new service that can do that longer distance trip that we saw from the data that Mimi showed earlier. People are making that trip on a really regular basis.
Great, thank you. And there was a comment that I'm formulating into a question. Someone asked, there already is the existing trolley line that goes from east to west. How will this rapid line provide additional options than what the trolley already provides to help people move through the community?
We don't have the trolley traveling along the 52. So this would be a new rapid transit line traveling that particular corridor. So you're right, there is some overlap between El Cajon and Santee, but this will make that new connection west along the 52. And I don't know if Mimi or Brian want to add anything additional to that.
I don't have anything else to add, Brian.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, yeah, it's the perfect answer. I think as we look to the alternatives for this route, we might consider that maybe hopping on the 15 on the freeway from El Cajon to Santee might be a quicker way than following that orange line or the new copper line out there in Santee over to Santee. So I think that's a great point that we don't want to just mimic some of the things, but we also do need to get folks from East County over into the Kearny Mesa UTC area. So the best ways to do that will be looked at during the study.
Great. And someone asked, are there going to be any transit connections from Cuyamaca College to this rapid route?
I'll jump in on that one. So that's what we're seeking right now. There's nothing defined in terms of stops. That's something we'll definitely take into consideration. So that comment is duly noted. But we will consider that, but that's not defined at this point.
And we do also have another rapid route in the regional plan that connects from Cuyamaca College, Rancho, San Diego, up into the heart of El Cajon. And then another rapid route that would go along Avocado as well. So there's other ones that go south out of El Cajon to those other areas.
Yeah, and you can take a sneak preview about all those different routes that are being planned. There's going to be an interactive map that's online. in May that we'll be releasing. If you follow us on social media, that you can see kind of all these other transit projects that are being planned over the course of the next couple of decades. Another question was, is the intent that people can park and ride at a big parking lot to take the bus on this route?
Yes, that's definitely something we're looking at, especially in the East County areas, where we can leverage existing parking lots or other parking strategies. There's also, we're thinking of that first mile, last mile connection as well. So, using any flexible fleets for people to take a little neighborhood electric vehicle to get to a stop. That is being considered. Antoinette, you have something else to add?
Yeah, we just want to make sure that everyone can get to the transit center, whether you have a car or not, right? So we'll be looking at, local bus routes connecting to this new bus, and maybe shuttles and other improvements. We'll even look at, whether or not there's sidewalk connections, bike connections as we're doing this planning, because we want to make it really easy for everyone to access these routes.
And I was also just going to add that in the regional plan, we're also proposing to increase frequency. So I saw the question about Santee. Is there other ways to get around Santee besides just this main rapid route that only does a couple stops? And yeah, for the 832, 33, 834 in Santee, we're proposing to increase the frequencies up to 15 minutes all day from, up like, I think they're like 45 minutes or something a day. And then in El Cajon as well, increasing the frequencies on routes there. And the same in Kearney Mesa and the university area as well, is really improving all the frequencies on all the local routes to really help provide that really strong network that provides people faster options so they don't have to wait long between transfers.
Right, because if it comes more often, more likely people are going to use it. Great. Here's a question for MTS. If Larry could help us out, has there ever been consideration of moving the Kearney Mesa Transit Center closer to or on Convoy? Their concern is that it's currently not near any major destinations, and transfers require crossing Claremont Mesa Boulevard, where cars are driving like they're on a highway. More routes stopping there means more trips possible through transfers, but transferring there can be a little unpleasant.
Yeah, we're aware that, the transit center isn't ideal, but there's not really a place in Kearney Mesa at the moment where we can put all the buses to kind of overlap and make those connections. So at the moment, it's where it's going to stay. We are looking at options to better it and to make the connections a little easier. That way people don't have to cross the street, whether that be the pedestrian improvements or just finding a whole new place, or maybe even taking over some of the real estate to try to create a better transit hub, a more traditional transit hub or transit station. But in the meantime, it's kind of what we have to stay with. So hopefully by the time the traffic goes into effect, and I think the year of 2030, we'll have something more complete.
But then, Larry, am I correct in thinking that if people want to advocate for safer pedestrian connections or adding any safety improvements there, they would be reaching out to City of San Diego about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're
Phil,
correct in that.
I don't know, Phil, if you want to comment on any how people could accomplish that.
Yeah, they can work with us. Yeah, thanks, Larry. And maybe even repeat. I want to make sure I'm answering the question.
Yeah,
correctly.
if people want to advocate for like a safer pedestrian connection in a particular area. So if I feel unsafe crossing Claremont Mesa Boulevard, connecting from Kearney Mesa Transit Center to other transit, how can I liaise with City of San Diego to improve that?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for clarification. Yeah, and that's really where the partnership between the city and SANDAG comes in. And we've been doing a similar effort. I know this is kind of connected to the regional plan. We have what's called the Mobility Master Plan that looks at more granular, transportation options within the city and on city right away. So specifically, I think it would depend on the area, but like for the University City area, which is a more recent community plan, it's chock full of pedestrian projects, so they could definitely look at that community plan update, and that's cascaded into the mobility master plan. to some extent Kearney Mesa as well, and that was a community plan that's on file. So we can certainly connect them to that. But I think the thing to celebrate is that there's a lot of interrelationships, right, between the pedestrian and I would say even bike network with the transit system, and that's intentional. I think we all know if we don't drive, right, we typically chain a trip together where we walk to a bus or we bike to a place where we're walking around and so on and so forth. So yeah, there's lots there and lots of recent planning work and projects.
Yeah, and always, I think, yeah, community members banding together, letting the city know if there's a particular spot that you're like, hey, can you please try to prioritize this? Groups of people uplifting stuff, I think, is also helpful as well. Okay, and there was a question that we have for, I think this would be a good Caltrans question. So if this is going to go along with 52, does that mean that we're adding an extra lane or expanding the width of the freeway?
So, hey, this is Jake Stelton. I'm the acting project manager for SR52 here at Caltrans. So this is a good question. Here at the district, we have what we call our managed lane systems plan, which is a planning document that correlates with some of SANDAG's documents, such as their regional plan, and calls for and shows what our anticipated managed lanes are on most of the major routes through San Diego. It also breaks it down into a near-term and long-term projection. And what you'll see is in the near term, it does call for an additional managed lane along SR52 in the westbound direction. And there's been a project identified to implement that. And we refer to that project as the SR52 Operations Improvements Project. So essentially, it is specific to the westbound direction. And what it would do is add a truck climbing lane from the Mass Boulevard on-ramp to the peak at Mission Trails. And then that would continue as an auxiliary lane down to Santo Road. And in order to do that, it would move the existing bike path that's on the north side of the freeway to the south side of the freeway. So it adds a lane in that westbound direction for that project area. And it also proposes to convert the inside lane from a general purpose lane to a managed lane, which would prioritize the route that's being proposed.
Great. So there would be what you're saying, an express lane available that these buses could utilize eventually.
Exactly. Yeah.
Going westbound.
We're hoping to time the project, the finish of construction, up with the implementation that you outlined here with the schedule.
Okay, great. Yeah, and also definitely making sure you follow Caltrans District 11, is it?
Yeah. On
social media, just to make sure you get any updates about what's happening with the 52, because I'm sure they'll be doing some outreach related to that. Someone asked, what is the closest bus stop to Linda Vista Road? All official stops remain to be seen, as we said. So we're just triangulating where the stops could go. And so we are going to continue to get public input from all of you about that.
Yeah, I think there's a handful of projects that want more specific information about stops and frequency, and all of that is what we'll work through in this planning study. So that's your opportunity to provide us with your input on where those stops should be, on how late the service should, operate, the frequency of the service. That's the input that we're taking now. We'll build that into the plan. So at the end of this planning effort, we'll have the route, we'll have proposed stops, and that operational information that you're all asking about right now.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Mimi, I know you went over earlier some improvements in infrastructure that would be involved in this. Do we have any idea? Could you reiterate like the types of improvements in infrastructure that we're considering to help make this route go faster?
Sure. One was just what Jake was talking about, and the question about highway lanes, like the express lanes, is one we're planning for and working with Caltrans on. That would be, very construction infrastructure, but there's also smaller infrastructure like technology improvements. So having green light priority at stoplights, so the buses can go through the intersections before automobiles. And then the buses themselves allowing all door boarding to get people on and off the bus faster too. So those are some examples of infrastructure and technology that we'll be looking at. And it's not set in stone yet either. But again, we're studying that as part of this process, and we'll be coordinating with the community and jurisdictions on the right mix of those solutions too.
But I want to point out too, as Mimi mentioned, some of those infrastructure improvements can take longer, and we know the community probably doesn't want to wait that long. So we may start with a basic service and then add those infrastructure improvements over time, so that you're not waiting 10 years for, the new transit connection.
Great. And we had a question if there are any possibilities for a stop up in the Marine Corps Air Station Miramar base. And I think also maybe if we can expand that question, is there any transit improvements that MCAS Miramar can expect?
Yeah, no stops are defined yet. We will certainly be coordinating with the Marines to get their thoughts on this too, because if we stop there, we'll want to make sure that we're allowed to or stop nearby, and see how it could make sense for riders that maybe wouldn't be stopping there, and make the route efficient for everybody to get to where they want to go. So we will be connecting with them on that idea.
Yeah, and I think there's also, we've seen some employers, for example, will arrange some sort of shuttle service from a stop nearby as well. So that could also be an option. Great feedback on that. And Brian, some questions about whether the route, we intend for the route to run weekdays, weekends, what's the time range that we're shooting for in like a perfect funding situation?
Well, for most of our rapids, we're shooting for, all day high frequency. So on regular arterial rapid routes that are on the roads, even shooting for a 10-minute all day. For routes like this that are kind of more express on the freeway, maybe 15-minute all day.
Every 15 minutes?
Yeah, every 15 minutes. And then longer hours than current routes even today, trying to get those early start times for folks and late start times. So, it's 10 p.m., maybe later, depending on the route and the feedback that we get on where the jobs are and how late those jobs are.
Yeah, and that's where the public input's going to be really important. So for everybody to just stay in contact with us, make sure as we start talking about service hours that you get your voice heard. Definitely. Someone wants to know if we're going to fix the gaps in the bridges west of Santee for the 880 express lane.
Those 52 bridges that are being referenced, if so, we probably need Caltrans to weigh in on that.
I'm not sure. Yeah, hey, this is Jake Stelton. I'm not sure what's being referenced as far as fixing the bridges. But if what's being asked is if we would be widening those bridges, so the project that I was speaking of previously would take advantage of the width of the existing freeway, and we would essentially be moving the bike path that's on the north side of the freeway to the south side of the freeway to make room for the additional lane. But to your point, if that's what you're getting at, is in the ultimate build out scenario of this MLSP planning document, it calls for 3 managed lanes along SR 52, which would require widening those bridges, would likely require widening those bridges eventually, but not in the near term.
Okay. Yeah, so might depend on funding, might depend on a lot of things.
Right. Thank you, Ellie, for bringing that up. The project that I've been referring to is funded through our environmental study phase and through design, but we're still actively searching for funding for construction, which should be noted.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, and so you guys are hearing about all the bureaucracy. We gotta fight for the funding at all steps of the way. We gotta duke it out with the other cities, other regions, sometimes across the country or across the state. Other questions people had. Do we anticipate that the UTC area of the route would be a loop or just a linear route?
So that's what we're looking at as part of this project right now too. So that exercise that Ali led us through on, what are the popular destinations? That UTC is one area, UCSD is another. We'll be looking at alternative alignments of where the bus maybe terminates at UCSD or UTC. So that's part of this project process over the next couple of years. But as Brian had mentioned earlier too, there are other routes in that area that should be able to help make that connection if we don't have that as our ultimate route alignment. Brian, do you have anything else to add about local routes that you're aware of?
No, but the University of San Diego or University of California, San Diego is doing a ton of work on their campus, realigning some of the bus stops and routes, and so that whole university area, including with the city of San Diego's recent university community plan update, has a lot of ideas. So as we start layering in more routes, probably likely would have some changes, just like when we opened the trolley up in that area. MTS did start making some changes to the routes because you don't want to over saturate certain streets with routes, but you do want to make sure you are covering a lot. And so I think there will be some changes with some of the routings in that area to really try and layer a bunch of different routes out there.
Great. Yeah, and getting some repeat questions just about days of the week and service hours. I think, yeah, the intent 7 days a week. What exactly?
Be based on the demand and the need, right? And that's kind of what we're analyzing through this process. So if we find that we don't have enough demand to operate the service 7 days a week, we wouldn't propose it. And I think Pang had a question about the frequency sounding like a lot. Again, we'll learn more about what those needs are as we get into the project and make sure that we're adjusting it. And, it can be adjusted once it's operationalized as well. If we find that we don't have the ridership during certain hours or enough to run 15 all day, we'll make those adjustments.
Yeah. And so definitely want to keep hearing from all of you. Just as a final note, thank you guys so much for all of your questions. We, as we said, do have a survey out asking the similar questions to what we had today on the call. That's going to be open for 6 weeks until Tuesday, April 8th. So you can let your community know by sharing our social media post that's going to go up about this survey. You can share the survey link, which will be emailed out after this call along with the recording of the meeting. And if you work for a community organization, you want to share graphics or get some captions for a social media post about the survey, you can email us or just email me back when I email you after the call. And definitely stay in touch with us. We will be reaching out, finding out if you want to subscribe to our Rapid 880 email list so you can stay in the loop as the project gets planned. Make sure you follow us on socials. You can find out about other opportunities to participate. So thanks everybody so much for taking time out of your evening. And feel free, if you have any other questions, to reach out to us at rapid@sandag.org. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Have a good one.